Who would you go see? LeBron or a dog that shoots basketball?
Oh, I'd see the dog every single time. I would pay outlandish. Guys, I got box seats to this dog.
That's all I'm saying. So if you want to challenge it, just teach Fido there how to do a layup.
He got fouled. The entire audience cried.
Here's the thing. Say what you want. Name one white woman who would not raise hell.
Tears over a foul.
The first time he got fouled.
Nope. And he just whimpers. Oh my god.
Oh my god, dude. I kind of want this movie. It's like Space Jam meets Air Bud.
Yeah, no, I want like Air Bud meets like what's that?
Air Bud Playoffs.
What's that? Ballers on HBO. Yeah. like the behind the scenes. Like, who's this dog's agent? Like, who's his entourage? Like, what baby mama is he trying to support by being on this team?
Oh my god, I would watch this.
We need an
Air Bud. Like, we need an Air Bud Ballers remake.
Yeah.
Like a modern day.
No, we need like an Air Jerome. We need like we need an Air like D-Mart. We need like the like
no one has ever named their dog D-Mart.
Guys, if you're listening, if you have a dog named D-Mart, please write us in and let us know.
Day.
When this boy meets world.
What up, bros?
What up, bros?
And welcome to Bruh Meets World.
What is Boy Meets Werewolf?
Yep, Boy Meets World fan cast. Welcome to episode 29. I'm Siege.
And I am TC.
All right, where you
in
at?
the place to be.
Where you at, boy?
With my boy C. About to review this terrible. No, not terrible.
No,
It's not.
It's not good.
It could have been good. That's what bothered me, is that it really could have been a good episode.
So, you know what's really funny about this episode is you and I have talked about the remake Girl Meets World.
Yes.
And in the remake Girl Meets World, there are episodes that are Mark Jacobs. And you're like, fantastic. Michael Jacobs, sorry. You're like, fantastic. I can't believe we're doing this. Yay.
Yeah.
And then you'll get another episode where you're like, this was a filler episode. Disney was like, we need you to make something for us.
Yeah.
And this was how they did it. That's how I felt with this episode. I was like, what TGIF exec is responsible for this? Because this episode is bad.
Well, here's the thing. Basically this episode, do you want to do the Tell Me About It real fast so we can...
Yeah. All right, so like we'll do the Tell Me About It, and we'll do it quickly because it doesn't take much else.
No.
It is one sentence. The Tell Me About It for this episode...
Tell me about it.
Will be shorter than that intro.
Yep.
The Tell Me About It is Cory thinks he's a werewolf and everyone gaslights him.
That's it, guys.
That's pretty much
That's the episode.
That's all you needed to know. You literally missed nothing.
Here's why I think this could have been a good episode, because what I learned from this episode is that, like, oh yeah, there is a lot of similarities between werewolves and puberty. I really like that whole concept. I just felt like there was a better way it could have been done that wasn't so damn silly. And that's what this episode was. It was silliness.
It's silly, but it's not even like silliness done in a smart way. Because remember, silliness done in a smart way is, and then there was Sean. A Halloween episode we do in a few years.
This being a Halloween episode, it just fell so flat.
It did. They're like, they barely, like, it's Halloween and you get that, but it just feels filler. And like, I think one of my problems is Cory's too old for this.
Yeah. This is first season Cory. This is the second season Cory.
He's way too old to be behaving like
to be thinking that he's actually turning into a werewolf.
Exactly. I mean, like, even like last episode we dealt with him and deodorant and smells coming from different places. You're telling me this boy gets a few hairs and that's when he's like, I'm turning into a werewolf.
I understand that, like, Eric's like, like, he's trying to, like, encourage this concept. He's messing with him as brothers do. But for Cory, and I have to admit, like, there's times where, like, my older cousins or something have told me something that I just ran with because I didn't know any better. It happens, but, like, werewolves?
Exactly.
By the way, if you're wondering, I did search. The Philadelphia Zoo does not have wolves.
You would, and I'm glad you did.
And in all fairness, they have a species that's technically wolf, but it's basically a tall fox. Hashtag no tall foxes.
Now let's talk about roll call. And the only reason why I'm bringing a roll call is we don't get any new students this episode, but we do get Madam Ouspenskaya. I don't know. I don't know how to say it, but it's Phyllis Diller. And I wanted to shout out Phyllis Diller because she is wasted on this episode, but she's still really funny in her.
My note here, the whole yogurt shop fortune teller thing is one long eye roll.
It's ridiculous. I'm not going to say that it's not. But it's still, again, she plays her character really well. And there's like this whole meta awareness thing with like her 3 predictions. Because like, a little bit more fleshed out if you didn't watch it is Cory thinks that he's a werewolf because there's a wolf loose that got lost from the Philadelphia Zoo. Mr. Feeney warns him about it. And then from there, Cory gets bit by some animal. He doesn't know which, but he assumes that it's the wolf, which we're just going to keep going because it's really hard for me to get through all of this. So Cory assumes that he got bit by the wolf, and he starts seeing all these things that aren't really signs. Like, he has hair growing everywhere, and he's drooling more than usual, and he has urges he can't control. And like TC had mentioned, all of this is to say that Cory's body is going through changes, but Cory links that with being a werewolf and not with the very talked about, very understood idea of puberty that he should be well aware of by now. He knows about Philippine tubes. Boys should know about hair growing in strange places. But anyway, to kind of solidify that, Cory then goes to meet a fortune teller. The fortune teller tells him that he's turning into a werewolf. She's clearly taking his money.
Actually, they kind of low-key show her to be an actual fortune teller at times, where she says, like, hey, you have a wedgie right now, and he's like, how did you? Like,
I think that if anyone who's going to a fortune teller, you know that they just kind of say things that are like, of course, they're general. Because, for example, anyway, she goes through 3 predictions, and with those 3 predictions...
I'm rolling my eyes. You guys can't see it. They're so rolled.
2 of them happen, and so Cory assumes that the 3rd one, which is that Cory will kill someone, a girl who loves him or cares about him, will come true. Topanga says that she cares about him, so Cory assumes that he will kill Topanga.
The other 2 things was him holding Mr. Turner's keychain and him eating a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, all of this was to say, so again, if you didn't watch it, that was a better synopsis than the one sentence that we gave you. But it's stupid. And then the B storyline to this, because you were like, there's no B storyline. But there is a B storyline. It just has no payoff. The soda can contest is the B storyline. They set it up.
I completely ignored it.
It goes throughout the entire episode. Even the last bumper scene, Feeney checks Cory's can for no real reason. It's Chekhov's soda can. They don't put it. Just really.
Do I have any notes about soda? No. Like, I didn't even pay attention to that bullshit.
The B storyline is that there is a soda contest and everyone's looking.
No, Alan's soda story is dumb.
That is the B storyline, and it doesn't even pay off. When they put it in there, I specifically made note of it because I was like, this has got to pay off at some point in time. Why would you mention it? It's even what Feeney's involved.
Well, I think the point was to show that, like, rumors have a way of, like, affecting people. And then, like, Cory has this superstition, which is dumb, but is it so much different than adults? But yes, the answer is yes, it is so different. Werewolves are fake. But that's the comparison I think they were trying to make that was just unsuccessful.
You could have said that and let it be.
Yeah.
Why continue it? Again, if they would have let it die with Alan, it would have been fine. The fact that Feeney picks it up, the fact that it's like this ongoing thing with soda cans in the background where everyone's like, oh, did you check this one? And there's nothing. Why do that?
Yeah.
It's stupid.
You know what? I think, honestly, I would have been way more on board with this episode if it wasn't like, hey, the zoo has a wolf missing conveniently. If it was Cory saw a horror movie.
Yes.
Cory sees a horror movie because that's totally relatable.
Yes.
You see Nightmare on Elm Street and you think Freddy Krueger's going to come and kill you, even though he were never worried about Freddy Krueger
Exactly.
before. That is a much more believable way of him like fearing werewolves, and maybe the movie creates those similarities where he like sees the wolf like in the thing, like the hair growing on the hands, and he looks down and he sees hair. Like something like that would have been way better.
Have you ever
this.
seen American Dad's episode where they try to convince Steve he's a werewolf?
No.
Well, it's really ridiculous, but it has this thing where it has a parallel of the same thing. A wolf got loose. Steve gets bitten, and so he thinks that he's becoming a werewolf, and of course, like, all these things, like, line up to where you can understand him going from being in denial to kind of believing it.
Yeah.
Like, something happens to where, like, the wolf actually does get into his room and, like, shed on his bed and all this other stuff. And so when he, like, wakes up the next morning, unbeknownst to him that the wolf has actually been in his room, there's fur everywhere and there's, like, blood from an animal. And he's like, oh my God, is this, like, a real thing? That makes sense. And that was a cartoon.
Yeah.
This puts in no effort. All it says is Cory found body hair. He heard about a werewolf. He made a very big leap.
But the other thing is that, like, Cory legit, like, is talking about this. Like, we see him candlelit. He has a pen and quill, and, like, he's, like, writing, like, his manifesto or whatever. Like, it's so dramatic. It just could have been way more believable had they just approached it from a different angle. Also,
what makes me angry about this is not just the fact, and we're kind of jumping around, but it's not just the fact that they take this storyline and kind of waste it. They take a book like Lord of the Flies.
Such a throwaway.
And waste it. Lord of the Flies has so many great commentaries about society and men and groups. And they waste it on this.
And it has served no purpose to the episode.
Why not do Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde?
Yeah.
That way more relatable of a story.
Or, like, is there, like, a werewolf-like version of, like, a book, like a Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? Is there a werewolf version of that?
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
That's the closest thing.
Yeah. But I'm sure. I mean, here's the thing. You're right. I don't know all of the Wolfman kind of things.
I thought that
now
was
they would be reading Twilight, I guess. So.
Yeah,
You know what would be a really good one? They would not read inside of school, but it'd be a really good analogy. Interview with a Vampire.
Yes. Something like that. Again, just something to kind of create this Halloween vibe that didn't seem to echo throughout the...
They didn't even, like... Here's the thing. They could have been forgiven if they even did, like, a American Werewolf type spoof. Or, you know, like...
Teen Wolf.
Yeah, Teen Wolf. Or
Wolf.
Anything like that. Where it's like even a small nod would have made this episode better. Where you're like, okay, you know what? It was stupid, but if you wrote this entire script just to do a Teen Wolf ripoff, I would allow it.
I'm on board with it. I think they also could have done a bottle episode. They could have done it where, like, Cory is getting ready to go to this party, and the entire episode takes place that hour before, because it makes sense to maybe have a crazy thought for a few hours and not throughout the series of, like, a week.
Yes.
Like, that's something I think would have helped allow this to be a little bit more believable.
You know what? I didn't even think about that, but that is really good. A bottle episode where Cory's in the bathroom thinking, like, he finds the hair. He thinks all of these
Eric
things.
comes in, his parents are coming in, Sean's coming in, like, he has people asking him, like, hey, we're getting ready for the party. Are you ready for the party? What are you doing? He's trying to get ready, but he's freaking out. That's a better episode, guys.
Way better. And doing mirroring of, like, again, if you want those the gypsy was here type motifs, have it be part of the TV movie that Cory saw. You know, and then he's just constantly remembering the movie and being like, this sign and that, like, those things. Again, all those things make
because
way
him
more
seeing
sense.
something in the movie and coming to his own conclusion makes sense that it would be a wrong answer. Like, that's more believable than like oh well, Eric told me this thing, so what? Yeah.
But I mean,
or a gypsy told me it was going to happen. What? At a yogurt shop?
Just like the gypsy woman said.
At a yogurt shop?
But it's one of those things where in reality, like, not even in reality, just in the universe that we've created, in the Boy Meets World universe, Cory's very impressionable. We know that. Cory watching a movie and assuming that that's how it would go. Cory seeing any kind of, like, parallels and, like, jumping from it, that makes sense. But Cory finding body hair after kind of hearing a story is just such a stretch how intelligent Cory is.
We've discussed sex education already.
Yes.
We've discussed all these things.
Exactly.
Sean, where Eric came to the class and was like, hey guys, you're going to be going through a lot of changes. People have been constantly letting him know that puberty is going to happen. How is this a shock to you?
Exactly. Thank you. Especially, like, when it's just a few hairs. In places, that makes sense.
Hair on my chin, on my chest, and other places I don't see where having hair on is really going to help me.
Such a funny way of saying he has hair on his balls.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. I'm not gonna lie. That's one of those funny moments.
You know what else was funny? When Sean shows up for the party dressed as Cory.
Guess where I'm going, Ass? Okay, I'll give you a hint. Wow, Sean, I wish I was as cool as you.
I'm sure I have no idea.
I'm going as you.
Yeah, exactly. That is funny.
I thought that was pretty savage, pretty Ben Savage.
Oh! And it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like your friends are low key.
Yeah,
like,
making fun of you. Dude. I love it.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to say, kind of a positive, is that I do like how Cory still listens to Eric.
Oh,
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
It's like Eric is clearly having some fun with him, especially with the dog bowl a little bit later. But Cory's still respecting Eric and really taking what Eric said to heart. It's kind of an innocence about Cory
Sure.
and an illustration of their relationship that I do like.
Yeah.
I will say that was a positive for me.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say there's a moment where Cory's taking out the trash and Feeney's there and he's talking about the wolf being loose. Bullshit. And Cory makes a joke about, like, what's a wolf doing all the way out here in the burbs? And Feeney says, probably looking for better schools.
Yes.
And I was like, hold on a second. Is the reason why we don't see more black students at this Philadelphia school because of redlining?
Yeah. They acknowledge it. I completely took note of that.
Okay, so also in that moment, we learn that Feeney is the acting head of the neighborhood watch.
Which makes sense for Feeney.
Okay, so I kind of went off on a little thought on this for a second, which is, what this tells me about Feeney is that here's this older man, he's a widower, he's late in life, and he could just kind of coast. You know? Yeah. But he's like, wait, there's a principal position open at this high school? I'm going to go for it. Yeah. What, the neighborhood watch guy is retiring? You know what? I'm going to do that. I'm not dead yet. I'm going to keep striving. I'm going to keep going for goals. There's low-key a whole show about a widower regaining his zest for life going on in the background. And meanwhile, Cory thinks a wolf bit him. What is this show?
Here's the thing. It's one of those things too where you look at Mr. Feeney and his story is a very interesting one because he has a very full life.
Yes.
I mean, for a widower we barely see his family.
Yeah.
And we barely see him even with the Matthews. He's there, but he like comes and goes. But every time you hear Feeney, he goes to the gym, as we saw in this episode. He's in charge of the neighborhood watch.
He has activities. He goes book clubs and he plants. He's so diverse and cultural.
Say what you want to about Feeney. You may not like his interests. You may think that they're old and stuffy. But Feeney is busy. Feeney has things to do. What you doing?
And it's so funny that he's single because I feel like Feeney, with the knowledge, the skills, everything that he has, would crush it at a nursing home. I feel like he would be just such a worldly, well-traveled.
Remember, not too many episodes ago, Feeney was macking on the faculty.
Yeah.
So,
which, by the way, as the principal, not cool, bro.
Oh, not cool at all.
Hashtag me too.
Thank you. No, for sure. But yeah.
Oh man, that's
abusing that pattern. Feeney, we trusted you.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So no. The only thing I also wanted to say is I just wanted. We kind of hit on it earlier, and then we can go back. But Phyllis Diller. She does a great job. I can't remember her name in it, but I do. As much as I don't like this episode, and I think that it was really simple, the comedy bits that they hit, like when they do hit it, are really funny. Like the whole prediction thing where like the first prediction is you'll have a taste for unfamiliar things or unlikely things, and that's when Cory eats the paper, and you're like, okay, that's literally a reach. It's like the biggest reach, but whatever. But then the second one, he goes, what is this in my hand? And he goes, oh, it's the Pentagon. And then he remembers, you'll get the pentagram in your head. Pentagon or pentagram? Whatever. It's just like that whole voiceover where it's just kind of like, it can be whatever you want it to be. That I liked, and I chuckled at those moments.
I think that Boy Meets World, like, their writer's room is like, hey guys, we have heavy and light episodes.
Yeah.
This one, let's just have fun with it. Let's just chock it full of as many jokes as possible. Yeah, sure, this yogurt shop has a gypsy in the back that reads fortune for $5. Of course, it's Philadelphia.
Can I use you as a reference? I just thought that was so Again, when they hit it, it's awesome.
The yogurt flavors were like, we have blood, which is essentially strawberry, and we have guts, which is chocolate. Can I get some blood and guts? It's our favorite combo. It's our most popular one.
Again, their lines, there are certain parts that are fun. But, you know, for the most part, this is very, for me, season 1 writing.
Sure.
Also, can we talk about the fact that Sean is essentially looting his room? And I love writer Sean in this episode because he's like, can I have your baseball? Well, first of all, he's like, can I have your baseball?
Yeah.
And Cory's like, no, that's still mine. He's like, you're not going to need it. He goes, I can still play fetch. And so there's that. And then later on, he's like, you're taking my shoes? Look, unless you have 4 matching pair, it really doesn't matter.
It's not going to matter. Yo, that's so Sean,
they're
too.
stupid, but it's that opportunistic.
What's really funny, too, in that moment is, like, Cory's like, yeah, you know, I saw the Untouchables last night, and I couldn't enjoy the violence of this movie because I was too busy thinking about those wet, cold titties on Baywatch. And Sean's just like, wow, you must really be going through something that you couldn't enjoy that violence.
Exactly. Again, it's an interesting note, and I feel like everyone kind of sees it for what it is, except Cory. Which they're just like, dude, puberty. like puberty. Literally, the thing that we've all been talking about.
And in all fairness, I don't remember how naive I was.
Not naive.
Yeah, no. But like, in the moment of going through puberty, was I aware that I was going through it as I was going through it? Or was it one of those things?
I was. You know what? I like that. And kind of to go into that. What was discovering like body hair and all this other stuff like for you? Because I was one of those nerdy kids where I researched everything. Before hair started coming, before I needed deodorant, I got a book and I read about puberty and I read about all these things. So for me, very often in life, things would happen that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
But I would be like, oh, this is like what I read in that book.
Sure.
So it's not abnormal. Anytime
that's how humans learn.
Abnormal, then this is before Google. And I feel like now kids are in a great position because you have Google, you have YouTube, you know.
Oh, you have Bing.
Yeah. No one goes to Bing.
Oh, it's my default browser.
Sponsored by Bing.
Bing.com, guys. Where you go to search for Google.
I love that joke because it's the truest thing. But anyway, I just like, you know, now it's like, oh, my balls are smelling, or like, you know, I got bit by something and hair is growing in weird places. I guarantee you we type that into Yahoo Answers. Yeah. And they're like, calm down, dude.
Although I have seen worse questions than, am I turning into a werewolf on Yahoo Answers? You know what's funny is that I started noticing body hair and I was really adverse to it because I was like, to me, like, I think I actually got body hair pretty early. And it was one of those things where none of my friends were getting it. And so I felt like it was gross. And I felt like it was weird. And, like, it took me a while to get on board to having body hair. Because I think this was also in the era where, like low-key men were shaving their arms and legs. Like,
a lot of our friends were swimmers.
Yeah. So it was just one of those things where, like, certain people, like, just shave their hair. And I was never super hip to that. And, like, it took me a while to get to the idea where, like, oh, chest hair can be sexy sometimes. Like, that's a thing that took me a long time to learn.
That's funny that you say that, because for me, in high school, never was an issue. But when we got older, especially when I came out, twinks were like all a really big thing.
Yeah.
You're young, you're supposed to be hairless. So I did for a while. I shaved everything. I look at pictures of me when I was like 19, and I'm just like, I'm clean shaven and everything. Like I've just shaved everything, and I'm just like, why? Like, because I look better with hair.
Yeah,
I look better with a little bit of face shadow, and everyone loves my chest hair. But it was just like such a thing where at the time to be shaven, to be honest, like going back to it, it was the white thing that everyone was doing, is what you saw. So
and it's also, I feel like it's just very unique to the time period in which we grew up, because like if you go back to like the 70s, like the 70s where you had pimps that had full chest hair and like stashes, and like it feels like just hair in general just stopped being cool. And
it was specifically in the 2000s.
Yeah, with metrosexual
thing. The metrosexual thing really made it to where like everyone was like really clean and like the gel backed hair. It was kind of like the 80s, but like no mustache.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. It was this thing of just like men for the first time trying to take care of their bodies.
Axe body spray.
But also too, like, and I know you said that you didn't specifically watch it, but I remember watching the first Queer Eye series.
Yeah, I never watched it.
And this came out around that time. I think actually kind of launching that metrosexual movement in a way. I can't be accurate on that, but for me, that was the first time I heard the term. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time I saw like men doing self-care. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I do think there's this idea of like, you know, the fact that people find the hair on me attractive lets me know that I don't need to be something that I'm not to suit someone else's definition of sexy.
No, and I think that that's a great thing that you've realized. And same thing here, again, when we were talking about accepting yourselves and all this other stuff, I think that time in your life when you start to get hair and you start to get body hair, I mean, especially now that we're getting older, everyone talks about the second puberty.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like the hair starts showing up in other places. You're like, I don't see how this is going to be useful. And like breakouts and all this other stuff. No, realizing what's happening to your body. And I really do watch young kids now. And like the other day I went to a restaurant and it was like a whole bunch of college students, like maybe freshmen or whatever. And it's like that's when you just see they're growing out their hair because they can grow out their hair. You know what I mean? It's just like you have these half mustaches where you're like, that's not a thing. You shouldn't have that. But that's all you can grow and you're really proud of it.
Yeah, and I think there is this switch. And specifically with Cory's age, yes, when the puberty changes start coming, at first they're scary, they're awkward, they're weird. You don't like what's happening. But then there comes a point of just like, oh no, like
it's a
status symbol. I'm shaving. My friends aren't shaving.
Yeah.
Like that's actually becomes like a thing. So yeah, you do have that peach fuzz mustache that we all grew out, trying to think that we had something. Like it's just, I think, and you know, even when we get later in the episode where Alan's like, hey, let's get you your first razor. Like that, it's a very like becoming like a man coming of age moment. And I think it's the same thing with women. Like when they start shaving their legs or just whatever. Like it's just a coming of age thing that happens.
I'm sorry, I honestly cannot remember what I was watching, but I was watching something where someone's like, there was a dude character and he's like, oh no, not that person, like this dude taught me how to shave. And they're like, oh my god, that's so sad. And then they tell a female character and she's like, oh no, he taught me how to shave. And his response is, where? And I honestly can't remember what it was, but it's just like that joke is all that came to my mind just now. He taught me how to shave. Where? Like, what are you talking about? But anyway,
Sean makes a joke about his mom having a mustache in this episode, by the way.
Yeah, he does. Again, I do like his mom still in the picture. That's one thing I'm keeping track of. Keeping track of Sean's family life because they low-key drop it in there.
Well, it's one of those things where I think they're just like they're setting up stuff for jokes alone, thinking of like long-term effects, which is why we have things like, oh, Sean has a sister that we never hear from again.
Again, I think it's a sister from a previous marriage, and that's how it works out.
Yeah. Broken homes, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's part of this world.
But anyway, yeah, no, that's all. I think this topic of discovering yourself, and we've already covered it. There are so many better ways they could have taken us through this journey.
Sure.
That Ben Savage and Cory Matthew are starting to mature. They're starting to get hair in places that they didn't expect. They're starting to have urges that they didn't expect.
Which, by the way, this is the first time we've seen Topanga in a bit, because she wasn't in the last episode.
Yeah, Topanga's been gone since, I think, episode 3.
Yeah, she's been gone for a bit, and by the way, like, when she shows up again, I'm like, this girl is going through changes of her own. Well, hashtag boobs.
I think that Topanga... I think that the episode is also out of order. It just feels like it's out of order, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like
it's Halloween. It's specific to a time period.
Yeah.
They knew when it was going to air.
Well, I know that they knew when it was going to air, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's like they wrote this episode to air when it aired, but they did not write this episode.
I see.
To
go
tell
with the story arc.
Yeah. Because here's the thing: last we really left off. Cory had spoken to Wendy. And then that was his dating situation.
And he went up to Topanga.
And I think the last episode he was macking on Melissa.
Yeah.
But no, Topanga. All I'm saying is Topanga has not been brought up.
No.
As like an option or anything. And then Topanga shows up, and they literally, before we see Topanga, they make the correlation of Cory and Topanga being a thing.
Well, I think that goes to play with the idea that we as an audience know them to kind of be a couple that we want to happen.
Yeah, but it's just they don't do. You've talked about it before. They build up to Cory and Topanga.
And I think this is part of the build-up, is like having like one-off episodes where they have a moment and then they kind of move away and come back.
I'm just not. Here's the thing: you could be right. I just personally, I was like, this. It feels out of place. It feels like one of those things where it's like they recorded this episode outside of whatever arc they were trying to tell, and it just premiered.
Or they honestly didn't just put that much thought into the arc.
True.
But I do think that Topanga has been very consistent in saying that we are very good friends and I care about you a lot. I don't feel that that's altered at all. I feel like the kiss that they have at the end of this episode, which, by the way, second kiss of them.
Yeah.
I feel that was one of those things that wasn't planned. Like, the date wasn't supposed to be romantic. It was like, hey, as friends, let's go to this thing. I care about you a lot.
So what do you think about that? That whole... There's this bit at the end where Cory goes, I'm not a wolf. I'm not a wolf. And then he just lays one on Topanga, and she's like, yeah, you are. I was like, what's that supposed to mean?
She's...
Don't you dare.
Right.
You PG-13 yourself right now.
I'm just saying that Topanga is most likely going through a lot of changes herself.
Yes.
And I personally think that Topanga has always loved Cory. That is my personal opinion. I think that she is mature enough to understand that he is not ready for anything more than just like one-off flings.
I will give you that.
And so I think that like her getting kissed by Cory means a lot more to her than it means to him. And I just think that she has the awareness to know that and to know like, hey, I'm not going to get excited by this, but I really like him.
Yeah.
And I think that as like he starts to mature more, she starts to give him more of a chance. But for right now, she is just very aware of what he means to her in her life and what she's willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
For like she said in that other episode where it's like, I'm not going to throw away our whole friendship for a weekend.
That makes sense. You know what? I'll give you that. There's this little bit where Cory's like, whatever you do, don't let Topanga be around me. Make sure you keep her as far away from me as possible.
Sure.
And he just turns around and Topanga's right there.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how you doing? But also on that, again, it's the thing where Sean is just kind of like indulging Cory, but like a little bit, you know what I mean? He's just like I don't think at any point in time Sean believes Cory.
No,
but
he just
understands
he
his
just
friend.
knows it's a way to get free stuff.
Well, that, and then also I feel like he understands that this is a thing that Cory does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, Cory's just ridiculous sometimes. You gotta let him be Cory.
You gotta let Cory himself out.
This episode, we see Cory eating a dog dish.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I had that, and I'm so glad you put that.
Which is the most ridiculous thing. But honestly, like, this episode was so stupid that when he started eating out of a dog dish, I actually cracked up laughing at it.
Well, because what happens is Eric... By the way, they don't have a dog. So Eric had to go buy that food dish. But Eric brings Cory his food in a bowl. And that's when he's like, he's going back and forth eating.
I didn't even think about that they don't have a dog.
They don't have a dog.
So either they had one and it's just been sitting in the garage or what. But
Eric went out and got...
He got a prop for this joke.
Exactly. Which, again... fits Eric. That makes sense. And the fact that...
Or, he was walking through the mall with Jason was like, yo, I'm in school Cory on this real fast.
And the fact that Cory starts eating from it, again, it's physical comedy where that Ben Savage does really well.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We're like, Cory believing he's a werewolf is stupid. But once Cory believing he is a werewolf, he would totally eat from the...
I have to say that, as ridiculous and as impossible as this stuff is, there's still something that Ben Savage brings to these roles that makes you, kind of on board. Even as ridiculous as it is, if this were any other charmless kid in this role, I wouldn't even be watching the episode.
Exactly.
But Ben keeps you in there.
Exactly. And I agree with that. And then the only thing I was going to say is when he goes, when they find my body or something like that, he's like, give it to the ASPCA. Which, I don't know if you know, but that's the American Society Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So, for me, it was so quick, I was like, who knows that? But when I looked it up and I found that out, I was like, that's funny. Because if you are going to be a werewolf, of course, Cory's thinking about his future. Which, again, I like. It's very Cory.
Yeah. To take an idea, a small idea, and just go off on the whole imagination of it, because it's also that same idea of I got invited to a cool party and getting obsessed with that idea. Cory gets obsessed over ideas,
but again, he also gets upset and he thinks them out. But you're 90% of what you thought out is irrelevant.
So but how true is that to us as kids when we are just trying to learn how to be in the world and we're only going off of what we know already? And so many of our assumptions are just so off the wall and wrong and false. And one of the things I do love is that Eric is trying to convince Cory that he's a werewolf, and he legit gives Cory fake news. He gives him the National Enquirer, and it's just yeah, this one guy got bit by a werewolf.
I know someone who knows someone.
Jason's cousin. Yeah. And it's just giving him this false information to kind of dilute his... So if I am Cory, if I'm really trying to get on board with this episode, if I'm putting myself in Cory's shoes, I don't know much about the world, I don't know what's happening, I'm going through changes, I'm confused because I haven't been paying attention in my classes or to my parents who have been telling me this because I'm a kid. And werewolves, maybe not completely impossible to me yet.
Here's the thing, werewolves... the way they go about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm really trying to give this episode some credit, guys. It's not good.
It's not. Well, it's just, again, I think that you and I sitting here have already come up with better ways of telling this story. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You mentioned Teen Wolf doing Teen Wolf.
Yeah, or just watching a movie, bottle episode.
I loved your bottle episode idea.
Yeah.
All of these things, all of these storylines, Cory, even if we didn't want him to watch something, which would be in keeping a comic book that he had been in, or
or fuck it, just do a whole dream sequence. Why just make the whole episode a dream sequence?
You know what? I kind of had that idea earlier, but I was like, maybe that wouldn't have made me like it as much. But maybe,
guys, get on board, because there's episodes where Boy Meets World goes into the past. We have dream episodes that are lined up.
And those make so much more. Again, had they pushed, if you want to go that camp...
Cory fell asleep watching a werewolf movie.
And he actually becomes a werewolf, and we make that parallel of Cory waking up and being like, I was a werewolf and I'm actually one, and Alan sitting down and being like, you're not, these are just hormones, but maybe we should get you a...
Guys, that's the episode. That's the episode.
We again, sitting here, half a second, thought of something better. Which is why, to me, this is so bad. It's not that Cory believed he was a werewolf.
Other people,
it's how they did.
Yeah, other people in the writers' room should have been like, "Hey guys, there's 1,000 other ways we can do this better." And also, I feel that puberty, as much as I'm glad that they're addressing it to their age group, and probably mostly because the actors themselves are going through it.
Oh, 100%.
I don't feel that this is so, like, we just had the sex education episode, and I feel like puberty and sex education are...
No, they're very different, and I think, like, your body's going through things and urges and all of that is separate, and I get it. I am not saying that having an episode specifically dedicated to the hair that's growing on your body is not important. I will not say that.
Yeah.
Because, especially when you have the fact that different guys get different realms of education. We talked not too long ago about BO. Do you shave? Do you not shave? That bush level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of this is really important. And like Cory, like depending, like I think just with Ben Savage, you don't really ever see it on him. But like there are some boys where it's like, no, when hair starts to grow, that shit starts to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? And I don't think it really happens for Cory or Sean for a while.
Like,
and you know what's funny is that when Sean finally does get some hair in college, he keeps it.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, to me, talking about starting to get body hair and all this other stuff, worthy of an episode. I'm not saying that it's not. I just think that the way they went about it was very lazy, and I feel that we could have done better because you and I sitting here right now, half of a conversation.
So, question for you: at the end of this episode, Alan tries to give Cory the, you're becoming a man speech. Yeah. You're going through changes. Do you remember ever specifically getting like a sit down? You're going to be going through changes conversation, because I don't. I remember just like it's literally like a combination of like assumptions and like just things you like talk to your friends about, and so heard this from so and like so and so's brother.
There's the whole thing like so I don't know about you, and we like kind of don't talk about it now, but like all my friends, like especially in college, we were like, oh, are we shaving? Like it was like a group thing. It was like, are we shaving? Are we growing it out? Like, well, like that whole thing was like very normalized. But and then it was a lot of, now that I think about it, a lot of like going through body changes and all. It was kind of like just. It was locker room talk. Yeah. It was kind of like hey, this is happening to me. Is it happening to you? And like this whole kind of conversations were like one-off things. You
like I remember specifically like this is such middle school bullshit, but it was like, yeah, man, I heard that jacking off makes your dick bigger. Not true. Not true at all. But something that an 11th grader might think that if I tug on this, it might get bigger.
I just had a flashback of certain conversations which are really inappropriate for 13-year-olds.
But that's how we learn things.
I'm not gonna lie though, I've had this thought in my head for a while. How much teachers have to know what's going on, and they just have to turn a blind eye to it.
And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, teachers, because first of all, kids they think they're the center of the world, so they're not paying attention. They just have conversations like no one can hear them. I know because I did it for years.
Yeah.
So you just talk like no one can hear you, and like, an adult has to be like, I can hear you.
And just when like adults, like I have to imagine teachers know that certain kids are having sex. Like that's just
again, or like even
give me the heebie-jeebies.
Not even like having sex, which is an extreme version of this, but like just especially in middle school, which we've talked about. You actually see kids' bodies go through changes. You see someone who was in 6th grade looking one way, and then they come in 7th grade and they're a completely different person. You get all of that. So as a teacher during those times, I'm always like, how much do you like know what's going on, and you're just like, I'm just gonna focus on my work.
If we have any teachers that are listening that have heard any interesting things from their students, please write us in and let us know. We'd love to hear the details of the fornication of your children.
Why are you like this?
Audience participation, guys, is what I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be sexual based, but even just like so and so does coke every weekend. Like as a teacher, you have to be like, what?
Yeah. Well, I've learned that teachers actually know a lot about what's going on with their students, and it's just, again, it just makes me laugh because there's all these things where it's like even they kind of hit on it later on, but like Feeney being like, well, of course I know what's going on with you guys. You're the loudest ones in my class. I've been paying attention, and I think that it doesn't stop with just the who's dating who. You're having these body conversations, and people are changing, and we've mentioned this a few times with like Sean being obsessed with girls now. I just can't imagine the number of like classroom boners Jonathan Turner has had to see and ignore. You know what I mean?
Gosh, I used to get classroom boners on the reg. And it was one of those things. Here's the thing about when I was a kid and I got boners.
I have no idea why we're having this conversation.
And let's deep dive. It was one of those things where like I wasn't even embarrassed of it. I was just like, okay.
That's what I'm saying, because not everyone's embarrassed of it. Some kids are like, yeah, I got a rager.
Yeah. It's just like, okay. And it's just one of those things where, you know what, it was like I imagine that it was very similar to when people start like shaving for the first time. It's just like, oh, I'm becoming a man.
That's what I'm saying. There are certain kids who like very much, you know, you start to grow hair and you're like ashamed of it. You start to get boners. You're like, oh, please don't call me. And there are other kids who are like, oh, I'll volunteer, Mr. Turner. Let me write on a chalkboard for a second.
I used to get church boners. What the greatest thing about a church boner is that the pews
Your mother listens to this.
The pews are at such a height that if you lean up against the pew,
I have no idea why.
It like hits it right there. So like you're just rocking along.
I do remember the rocking along. Along, and then also the thing with your legs.
This conversation. Yeah, this thing where you kind of like
where you just
flap your legs back and forth.
Yeah, it's a way to
enjoy the friction. Let's enjoy this friction.
It's a way to touch yourself without touching yourself, where you're just sitting in class.
And you're just like,
It's actually terrible. Like, let's
wait real fast. I remember the first time I had a wet dream.
Why?
Because
why are we having this conversation?
Because we're talking about puberty.
Right,
whatever.
Go
I remember the first time I had a wet dream, and I never talked to my parents about sex stuff. Like, I just never did. And I remember I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask my dad about this. And I remember specifically like, hey Dad, I had this dream. And because from my perspective, it was like, this dream was dope as fuck. How do I get this to happen again? But that's not how I was asking it. I was just like, oh, you know, Cavalier, like, how did this happen? Yeah. When I was just like, I had sex last night. Let's go back to it. So he was just like, yeah, you know, changes happen and sometimes, you know, things happen. And it was such like a 2-sentence response. Like, I don't want to talk about this. Yeah. But it was still just that thing of just like, there was like parts of puberty that I was like strangely on board with. And there were other parts like body hair that I was super embarrassed of. So it was just interesting just in that age.
I often think about what's the proper way to talk to your kids. And I don't know if you have kids or if you had like a good talk, you know, let us know. But like talking to your kids about stuff like that, where I personally feel that so many children are at a disadvantage because we won't talk about something that is clearly obvious. You know, it's just like your child is going through changes. There are lots of things that, don't get me wrong, it's embarrassing, but your job as the parent is to let them know that it is not so embarrassing that you ignore it, first of all, because it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And then second of all, that it's nothing to be ashamed of because literally everyone is going through this.
And I actually think this show kind of touches on one of the reasons why I feel that we should talk to specifically teenagers about self-exploration, masturbation, all those things, self-discovery, because it talks about how like the stupid gypsy 3 predictions. The third thing is that your lust, your rage for this woman will cause you to hurt her. Talking about how low-key men's like fuel for sexuality will turn them into monsters if they allow it to. So yeah, you should talk to your kids about masturbation and self-discovery in ways that they can...
Cory says, I have needs and desires I'm not sure I can control.
Yeah, like these
and that's, again, that's a very... This is what we're talking about. It's like, that is something that they hinted at, like, oh, you remember what it's like to be this age and feel that way. But it's just a lost opportunity to be like, but you can control them. Yeah. You are 100% in control. There are moments where you may feel like you're not in control.
Yeah.
But you're not a werewolf. You don't
The episode should have been about control. It should have been about Cory feeling things towards maybe Topanga that he's never felt before. Those hormones.
What about Topanga? She's meeting us here, remember?
No, I told her it wasn't safe. I can't be responsible for my actions. Only evil will come from tonight.
And, like, that being more of the center of it than this werewolf
You're not...
storyline.
Well, again, it's like a... I think the analogy between... I mean, first of all, it's literally a tale as old as time. But the analogy between werewolves and teenage boys just makes sense. I get it. But one of our biggest issues is that they just don't take advantage of this story the way that they could have. And they don't even... I think the mirror scene is a prime example. If you wanted to get Cory in a mask looking like a werewolf, make it a dream sequence. Lean heavily into that. Don't half-ass this episode.
I would be really interested to see a take on werewolves that really talks about more so how sexuality and the fuel for sexuality turns men angry. Kind of similar to when you were talking about
Teen Wolf?
Well, no, like, a few episodes ago we were talking about incel culture and just that, like, the real life applications of what it means to let your desire for sex actually turn you into a monster. Like, that is such an interesting take that I would love to see.
That's some Degrassi level.
And I guess, even I think more of, like Babadook, how that kind of talks about, like...
I haven't seen it, but, like...
so it's, like, the monster is a symbolic monster. And so, like, that kind of thing I feel is a more interesting take on werewolves, and really this whole story. But as we've discussed... this episode's awful.
Yeah, okay. I feel like you and I are trying to make something out of this. So let's just close it out. So, I mean, do you have a bro moment? Do you have a lesson? Like, do you have any of those things?
Okay, no. I do have a bro moment. And I do think that the bro moment I realize is, like I was saying, the relationship between just werewolves and what it means of sexuality to influence anger, the incel thing. I think that is more of it made me appreciate the werewolf mythology more than anything else, but I didn't give a shit about this episode from it.
Yeah.
So...
my bro moment is actually Feeney's line about redlining.
Yeah.
That's one of those moments where it's like, it took me out of it, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, are we hitting on something here?
Yeah.
Just kind of like how, I think it was last episode, where Feeney made that little comment about needing more money, and you're like, yeah, Feeney is a teacher's salary, and he needs it.
Sure.
That was like my moment where I was like, oh yeah. But honestly, my lesson from this episode, you'll grow. Like, you grow hair in places, and that's just the thing that happens.
My lesson for this episode is that 22 episodes are unattainable. Netflix has it down, 12 episodes.
You know what? Let's just leave it on that.
Yeah.
All right. So, any homework?
Homework. Let's talk Jurassic World.
Yes. Okay. It's so great that you say that, because I've been reading. Before we do that, grades. What are you giving this episode?
I'm giving this episode a D-. I thought it was terrible.
Yeah, and I'm giving it a D+. Again, the humor's there, but it was a D.
And also instinctually, like, when I saw that this episode was next, I groaned and was like, I really wish I could skip this episode. Like, I remember just not liking this, even as a kid.
I didn't remember this episode at all, but I really think our conversation was way more entertaining than that entire episode.
And also, just to know that, like, Boy Meets World does Halloween so much better with... Even though... And then the Rashawn's not technically a Halloween episode. Like, it's, to me, my favorite episode of the series. We've talked about this, how much we love it.
Yeah.
And so, like, this, like, to know they had the potential to do something great with Halloween and didn't, it's just like,
Yeah. All right, so, homework. Where we at? All right, so...
Jurassic World.
So, I saw Jurassic World. I saw it. It was one of those things where it's like, if you've been watching it and if you like Jurassic Park movies, you know what you're getting at this point in time. There are several things that you're just like, this makes no sense, this makes no sense, why did you do this? This is basically a different character. We did not have to get to the result that we ended up getting to. But again, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. If you like Jurassic Park movies, go see it.
If you like Jurassic Park 2, if you like Jurassic Park 3, you'll like this one.
Exactly.
That's all I have to say.
That's all I'm going to say. But it did inspire me to read the original Jurassic Park book by Michael Crichton, I believe it is. And it's a really good book. I don't know have you ever read it?
No.
It's a good book. I would suggest it to everyone. That's going to be my homework for this week. Read Jurassic Park, the book. It kind of parallels the first movie, but they give you such more fleshed out characters, motivations. There's a lot more science behind it. You really, like, by watching the movie after reading the book, you really see how they condensed it and what they kept and what they left. But for the most part, it's a great journey.
How accurate is the movies to the book?
It's again, for the most part, they kind of combine a few characters and a few scenarios, but in certain ways the book is better with the characters, and in certain ways the movie makes a vast improvement.
Well, I have to imagine that in general, just dinosaurs on the screen just makes more of an impression than dinosaurs in the book.
You'd be wrong.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Dinosaurs in the book, the raptors are really big as they are, and they really go into their intelligence. And
that's interesting.
You get a really big sense of how dangerous the raptors are. Again, you see it in the movie, but in the book, they really, like, you get scenes with the raptors playing mind games.
Well, it feels like, honestly, like, every Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic World, whatever, it's like, Tyrannosaurus Rexes are cool, but hey guys, check out these raptors. From the first movie, it was like, hey, no, raptors are the big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And they kind of, again, in the book, they kind of hit on that, which when you see it, I even think, while I've been reading the book, I even think when you get into certain parts, because there's a part in the book where they clearly stopped. They were like, this is fine. And I agree. I was like, we could have ended right here. But the book keeps going. But I kind of feel like they've taken those later chapters and added them to different movies to kind of flesh that out. I just immediately, I thought of this book because we were doing a Halloween episode. And again, we were doing these whole movie monster type things. Dinosaurs is definitely one of them. And Jurassic Park, the book, is really good. Check it out. What's your homework?
So I know this is going to sound kind of lame. My homework is to encourage people to read the Declaration of Independence.
No.
I read this morning. We're currently recording this. I don't know when we're going to air it, but we're recording this around 4th of July. And I just felt the need to just kind of go back and read it. And what's so baller is, like, within, like, the first 2 paragraphs, this thing is, and I'm going to quote this. So we have the whole, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but it goes right into the section of just, whenever any form of government becomes destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. And I just thought that was such a powerful statement for where we are in this country right now, where people are like, it's not American to take a knee. It's not American to march in the streets, where it's like, no, son, this is actually what America is based off of, is the people gathering together and saying what they want. It says here that the government lays foundations that likely to affect the safety and happiness of the people. It says happiness, and I know Will Smith's movie Pursuit of Happiness talks about how it mentions happiness over and over again, but, like, it matters that people in this country, brown people, women, people like trans, like anyone, if they're not happy, that matters according to the Declaration of Independence. And I just thought that was such a cool concept that I feel in this day and age when people are like, it's not American to say you have beef with America. No, that's the most American thing you can do.
Yeah, so as you said, at this point in time, 4th of July was a few weeks ago, but my whole 4th of July party theme is T-Pain, but it's Thomas Paine, which was a revolutionary writer.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it. It's like, T-Pain. But anyway, all of that is to say, he wrote a lot of things that are very relevant. Thomas Paine was the first person who'd be like, if your government's not working for you, get a new government.
Yeah.
Like, he is one of the reasons why he wrote this book, ironically called Common Sense.
Yeah. Common Sense.
And it's all about how, in reality, if things aren't working for you, if your government is trying to strong arm you, about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, gather your people and be like, no, protest. Make sure that you fight for the country that you believe in, because it is the people's job to check their government. The government works for you. You don't work for the government. That is literally that is way back into the original thoughts. That's why we revolted. That's why we got the Tea Party and all these other things. But people constantly want to be like, oh, no, it's un-American to stand up for your rights. It's like, that's literally what this country was founded on.
Yeah. When are these colonies going to rise up?
How have we not mentioned Hamilton?
I don't know how we haven't mentioned Hamilton. But one thing I do want to say, like, in mentions of Hamilton, if you go through and you keep reading the Declaration, there's like 5 paragraphs that's just talking shit about King George, and I love it. I was just like, yo, this is actually kind of hilarious that this is in our Declaration, just being like, King George is doing this bullshit, and King George was doing that. We ain't about that over here. And it just really, like, Hamilton has found a way to make this so relevant and real to me, where I can read something like this and actually appreciate it from a human level, not an ancient, dusty piece of paper. So yeah, bringing it back to Hamilton. Yeah.
All right. So if you haven't caught up, that's a lot of homework for you, but you're going to check out Jurassic Park. You're going to read the Declaration of Independence. I feel like we should throw in a Nick Cage reference. Watch National Treasure, because it's a national treasure. And
also, guys, let's start a hashtag National Treasure 3 that we can get Disney on board.
You think I don't want a National Treasure 3?
They said
amazing.
It. Oh my gosh! And Nicolas Cage, just let's get him back, guys.
And then check out, like, at least Spark Notes, Common Sense by Thomas Paine.
Also, if you haven't watched this episode, don't read the Wikipedia summary of Boy Meets World. Of Boy Meets World.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This is Abra Meets World. Remember to find us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, all the places that they have it. Remember to give us ratings, write us, add us, interact with us the best way that you can, that you know how, in all the ways, smoke signals, but mostly just make sure that it has that @Bra Meets World tag. And
we're the only Bra Meets World on the internet, guys.
We are brameetsworld@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter. That's XTRACEEJ, Extra Siege. TC, where are you at?
You can find me on Instagram @ABraveForMe. You can also find me in your mama's bed, boy.
I don't know why I allow you to do these things. So thank you guys so much. Hope you've been enjoying yourselves, and remember to dream, try, and do good.
Do good, guys.
Later, bros.
Later, bruh.